Scotty and the Shadow Creatures. Scotty lived in a small, cozy house on the outskirts of the city. He had moved here a few months ago to escape the chaos of urban life and give his daughter, Tina, a chance to grow up surrounded by nature and fresh air. However, Scotty couldn't shake off the feeling that something was amiss in this seemingly peaceful neighborhood. One evening, as dusk settled over the horizon, Tina came running inside, her eyes wide with fear. "Daddy, there's a scary shadow creature in our backyard," she exclaimed, tugging at Scotty's shirt. He glanced out the window, but saw nothing unusual, just the fading light and the silhouettes of trees swaying gently in the wind. "There's no one there, Tina," he reassured her. "It was probably just your imagination." But as days passed, Scotty began to notice strange occurrences around their house. He found footprints on the windowsill and handprints on the roof, as if someone or something had been lurking outside their home. But these weren't ordinary prints. They were too large for any human and left an odd residue that smelled like sulfur. Scotty dismissed it as a prank by some mischievous teenagers until one day when he woke up to find the side of his house scratched with deep, mysterious symbols that appeared to be written in blood. He tried scrubbing them off, but they wouldn't budge, as if etched into the wood itself. Then, on a particularly clear night, he heard strange whispers coming from outside his bedroom window. He went to investigate and saw nothing, only darkness shrouding the yard under the moonlight. But as he stood there, he felt something brush against his leg, a cold, slimy touch that sent shivers down his spine. He turned around quickly, but saw no one or anything. The hairs on the back of his neck stood up, and he knew he wasn't alone. As time went by, these incidents became more frequent and bizarre. Scotty found feathers inexplicably scattered across the lawn, as if a giant bird had landed there. And then there were the sounds, low growls echoing from the woods at night, chilling screams that seemed to come from underground, and the eerie melody of an old piano playing by itself. Despite these unsettling events, Scotty tried to maintain normalcy for Tina's sake. He took her out on hikes through the nearby forests and built forts in their backyard to keep her mind off the strange happenings around their house. But one day, while they were exploring a dense part of the woods close to their home, something truly terrifying happened. As they walked along a narrow path, Tina suddenly stopped and pointed at a figure standing near a large tree. It was tall and shadowy, wearing an old-fashioned top hat and trench coat, its face obscured by the darkness. Scotty squinted to get a better look, but saw nothing, only empty space where the figure had been moments before. He tried to dismiss it as a trick of the light or his daughter's overactive imagination, but Tina was adamant that she had seen something real. And then, just as suddenly as it appeared, the shadowy creature vanished without a trace. Scotty felt uneasy about the incident and decided to keep a close eye on their surroundings from then on. But despite his vigilance, more inexplicable events unfolded. Strange symbols started appearing not only on their house, but also on trees around their property. These were unlike any marks he had ever seen before, intricate patterns that seemed to change every time he looked at them. And then there were the whispers again, only this time they sounded closer, as if coming from under their very feet. As days turned into weeks, Scotty became increasingly concerned about the safety of his daughter and himself. He felt like they were being watched, hunted down by some unseen force lurking in the shadows. He decided to take matters into his own hands and investigate further, hoping to uncover the truth behind these bizarre occurrences once and for all. But as he delved deeper into the mystery, he realized that this wasn't just a simple prank or a local legend. There was something far more sinister at play here. Something that could threaten not only their lives, but also the entire community. And so began Scotty's quest to unravel the secrets of the shadow creature and protect those he loved from an imminent danger lurking in the darkness. Scotty couldn't shake off the feeling that something was amiss, even after his encounter with the shadowy figure. As days went by, he became increasingly obsessed with uncovering the truth behind these strange events. He spent hours researching online, trying to find any clues or similar cases that might help him understand what was happening around his home. He discovered stories of other families in different parts of the country experiencing similar occurrences: footprints on windowsills, handprints on roofs, whispers in the night, and so on. But despite their shared experiences, there seemed to be no concrete explanation for these phenomena. It was as if they were all living within separate bubbles of terror, with no clear connection between them. Scotty decided to share his findings with Tina's mother, hoping she could offer some insight or support in dealing with this situation. However, she dismissed his concerns as paranoia and insisted on moving back to the city for their safety, believing that these incidents were simply a product of her ex-husband's overactive imagination. Heartbroken and frustrated by her lack of understanding, Scotty knew he had no choice but to continue his investigation alone. He spent countless nights awake, listening intently for any sounds or movements outside their house. And as time passed, the incidents grew more frequent and intense. Feathers became bones, whispers turned into screams, and footprints on windowsills gave way to fresh bloodstains on walls. One night, while Scotty was sitting alone in his living room, trying to make sense of it all, he heard a loud thump coming from the direction of their backyard. He rushed outside, flashlight in hand, but saw nothing unusual, just darkness shrouding the trees and bushes under the moonlight. But as he stood there, he felt something brush against his leg again, the same cold, slimy touch that sent shivers down his spine. He turned around quickly, but saw no one or anything. The hairs on the back of his neck stood up, and he knew he wasn't alone. Then, just as suddenly as it appeared, the shadowy figure vanished without a trace. Scotty felt uneasy about the incident, but despite his vigilance, more inexplicable events unfolded. He knew that time was running out, and he had to act fast if he wanted to save himself and Tina from a fate worse than death. With renewed determination, Scotty began to investigate these strange occurrences more systematically. He started by taking detailed notes of every incident, no matter how small or insignificant it seemed. He also made sure to document the time, date, and location of each event as accurately as possible. This way, he hoped to identify any patterns or similarities that could help him understand what was happening around his home. He spent hours poring over maps of the area, trying to find any correlations between the reported incidents and geographical features such as natural springs, underground caves, or ancient burial sites. He also reached out to experts in various fields: archaeologists, geologists, historians, even paranormal investigators, seeking their input on these mysterious events. Despite his best efforts, though, Scotty found himself hitting a dead end. The more he dug into this mystery, the deeper it seemed to pull him in, leaving him with more questions than answers. It was as if he were chasing shadows, unable to grasp anything concrete or tangible about what was happening around him. Frustrated by his lack of progress, Scotty decided to take a different approach, one that involved taking risks, and stepping out of his comfort zone. He knew that time was running out, and he had to act fast if he wanted to save himself and Tina from an imminent danger lurking in the darkness. He began by gathering all the evidence he had collected so far: notes, sketches, photographs, even some of the strange symbols carved into their house and nearby trees. He then set up a makeshift lab in his garage, where he spent countless hours analyzing every piece of information he had gathered. He used high-resolution microscopes to study the samples he had taken from the bloodstains on their walls and found something startling: traces of an ancient DNA sequence that matched no known species on Earth, confirming what he had feared all along. There was indeed something far more sinister at play here than a mere prank or local legend. Scotty realized that this was a race against time, and he had to act fast if he wanted to save himself and Tina from the impending danger lurking in the darkness. He decided to reach out to a group of scientists who specialized in studying ancient DNA sequences and their potential implications for modern medicine. Although skeptical at first, they agreed to help Scotty analyze his findings further. Using advanced computer algorithms, they were able to reconstruct the full genetic sequence of the mysterious creature responsible for these bizarre occurrences. The results were shocking. It was a species that had been extinct for millions of years, a colossal winged beast with razor-sharp talons and an insatiable hunger for human flesh. This discovery confirmed Scotty's worst fears, but it also gave him hope. If he could understand the nature of this ancient creature, maybe he could find a way to protect himself and Tina from its wrath. He shared his findings with the scientists, who agreed to help him come up with a plan to neutralize the threat posed by the shadow creature. With their guidance, Scotty began preparing for what could be the most dangerous confrontation of his life, one that would require courage and an unwavering determination to protect those he loved from certain doom. He knew that time was running out, and he had to act fast if he wanted to save himself and Tina from a fate worse than death. In the meantime, Scotty continued his investigation of the local area, hoping to find any clues or leads that could help him understand why this ancient creature had resurfaced after so many years. He visited nearby libraries and archives, searching for old maps, diaries, or other documents that might shed light on the history of the land around his home. He also talked to locals who lived in the area before modern development swallowed up most of it: farmers, hunters, fishermen, even some elderly folks who had grown up there during the Great Depression. They told him stories about strange creatures lurking in the woods, whispering voices coming from underground caves, and shadowy figures glimpsed in the moonlight near abandoned mines. These tales confirmed Scotty's suspicions that this ancient beast was not alone, but part of a larger network of creatures that had lived beneath the earth for centuries, undisturbed by human civilization above them. And now, it seemed, they were emerging from their underground lairs to wreak havoc on the unsuspecting world above. As Scotty pieced together these clues and threads of information, he began to form a picture in his mind, one that was far more terrifying than any horror movie he had ever seen. He realized that the shadow creature was not just some local legend or urban myth, but an ancient beast awakened from its slumber by human encroachment into its territory. This realization filled him with dread, knowing that there was nothing stopping these creatures from unleashing their wrath on humanity once again after lying dormant for so many millennia. He knew that time was running out, and he had to act fast if he wanted to save himself and Tina from a fate worse than death. With renewed determination, Scotty set out to gather all the resources he needed for his final confrontation with the shadow creature: weapons, ammunition, survival gear, even some ancient artifacts that might hold clues to defeating this ancient beast. He knew that what lay ahead would be a grueling and dangerous journey, but he also knew that it was his only chance at saving those he loved from an imminent danger lurking in the darkness. As Scotty prepared for his final showdown with the shadow creature, he couldn't help but think back to Tina's innocent question when she first saw its ominous figure outside their window. "Daddy, there's a scary shadow creature in our backyard." Little did they know then that this was just the beginning of a terrifying journey that would test their courage and resolve like never before. In the end, it all came down to this one man against an ancient beast awakened from its slumber by human encroachment into its territory. Scotty knew that he had no choice but to face his fears head-on if he wanted any chance at saving himself and Tina from a fate worse than death. He was ready for what lay ahead, armed with knowledge, determination, and a fierce will to protect those he loved from the impending danger lurking in the darkness. And so began Scotty's final confrontation with the shadow creature, a battle for survival that would push him to his limits and leave him questioning everything he thought he knew about the world around him. This was more than just a fight against an ancient beast. It was a test of his humanity, his resilience, and his unwavering love for those closest to him. The outcome of this epic struggle would determine not only their fate, but also the future of the entire community, one that had been shaken to its core by the mysterious events unfolding around them. And as Scotty prepared himself for what could be the most harrowing experience of his life, he couldn't help but wonder if there was any chance at all of coming out victorious against such an ancient and formidable foe. Scotty stood outside the dark entrance to the underground cave, his flashlight illuminating only a small circle of dirt in front of him. The air was thick with the smell of damp earth and something else, an ancient, musty scent that made his skin crawl. He took a deep breath, trying to steady himself for what lay ahead. He had spent countless hours researching these creatures and their habits, studying old maps and legends that spoke of hidden caves where they were said to dwell. And now he was about to confront one directly, armed only with his wits and whatever primitive weapons he could scrounge together from around the house. Scotty knew that this was no ordinary beast he was facing. It was an ancient creature that had lived underground for millions of years, undisturbed by human civilization above them. Its senses were far keener than any living thing on Earth today, its strength and agility unmatched by anything else in the natural world. And yet, there was something about the way this creature moved that made Scotty feel uneasy, as if it had been watching him for weeks now, waiting patiently for just the right moment to strike. He couldn't shake off the feeling that he was walking into a trap, but he had no choice but to press forward if he wanted any chance at saving himself and Tina from certain doom. As Scotty stepped into the darkness of the cave, his flashlight flickered and died. He cursed under his breath, fumbling around in the dark for spare batteries or anything that could help him see better. But there was nothing, just empty space, where he had left them on the kitchen counter before leaving home. He knew then that this was part of its strategy, to lure its prey into a dimly lit lair where it could easily overpower and devour them at its leisure. But Scotty refused to let fear control him. Instead, he focused on the task ahead, finding the creature and neutralizing it before it had a chance to attack. He reached out with both hands, feeling along the wall for any indication of where the entrance might lead. His fingers brushed against something cold and wet, causing him to recoil in disgust. He realized then that this cave must have been flooded at some point, leaving behind puddles of stagnant water that had accumulated over time. The thought made him queasy, knowing what kind of creatures might thrive in such an environment. But Scotty pushed those thoughts aside. He didn't have time for self-doubt or fear right now. There was only one thing on his mind: finding the shadow creature and putting an end to its reign of terror once and for all. As he made his way deeper into the cave, feeling along the walls with outstretched hands, Scotty began to pick up on faint echoes of movement ahead of him. He could hear something shifting in the darkness, a rustling sound that grew louder as he got closer. He knew that this was it, the moment of truth. With each step forward, Scotty felt himself being drawn further into the heart of the beast's lair, where its ancient power waited patiently for its next meal. He couldn't shake off the feeling that he was walking into a trap, but he had no choice but to press forward if he wanted any chance at saving himself and Tina from certain doom. As Scotty drew closer to the source of the rustling noise, his senses heightened with each footstep. He could hear something breathing heavily just beyond the circle of light cast by his flashlight, an irregular pattern that suggested a creature much larger than any living thing on Earth today, an ancient beast awakened from its slumber by human encroachment into its territory. This realization filled him with dread, knowing that there was nothing stopping these creatures from unleashing their wrath on humanity once again after lying dormant for so many millennia. The rustling noise grew louder still, and then out of nowhere, a massive winged creature burst through the wall ahead of Scotty, its leathery wings beating against the air as it took flight. The suddenness of its appearance caught him off guard. He barely had time to raise his weapon before the shadowy figure was gone into the darkness beyond reach. Scotty felt a surge of frustration and panic. How could such an ancient beast move so swiftly? He had always imagined these creatures as slow-moving giants, hulking monsters that lumbered about underground lairs with a menacing presence rather than actual speed or agility. But now, seeing it in action, he realized just how wrong his assumptions had been. The shadow creature was anything but slow. Its movements were quick and fluid, its body elongated and sinewy like a giant snake slithering through the darkness. It seemed to glide along the walls of the cave with an eerie grace, leaving behind only faint footprints on the dampened earth as it disappeared into the abyss ahead. Scotty knew that this was not just a fight against an ancient beast. It was a test of his humanity, his resilience, and his unwavering love for those he loved from the impending danger lurking in the darkness. And now, as he stood there, alone in the dark with nothing but the sound of his own breath for company, Scotty realized that the time had come to face his fears head-on if he wanted any chance at saving himself and Tina from a fate worse than death. With renewed determination, Scotty began to follow the faint footprints left by the shadow creature on the dampened earth ahead of him. He knew that this was not just a simple chase, it was a race against time itself, as he tried to outmaneuver the beast back into its lair, where he could trap and neutralize it once and for all. But despite his best efforts, Scotty found himself being led further into the heart of the cave system, deeper into the unknown depths where no light could penetrate. The darkness was suffocating, a tangible presence that made him feel like he was being watched from every direction. As he prepares for what could be the most harrowing experience of his life, he can't help but wonder if there is any chance at all of coming out victorious against such an ancient and formidable foe. And so begins Scotty's final showdown with the shadow creature, a battle for survival that would push him to his limits. In this episode of our story, we find out that some villagers came to visit Scotty and shared with him knowledge that he was part of a long line of powerful warlocks. His family had tried to hide that from him so that he could have a normal life, but under these dire circumstances the elders decided to tell him everything. They taught him all they knew of the old ways so that he could finally face off against those shadow creatures lurking in the darkness. With renewed determination and power, Scotty went back into the cave system where he had previously encountered these beasts. He was ready to take them on this time, fully prepared with everything he needed for battle. It didn't take him long before he found one of those creatures, a large beast with razor-sharp talons and an insatiable hunger for human flesh. Scotty took out his wand and chanted a powerful spell that turned the beast to stone. He then smashed the stone to pieces, releasing its spirit back into the world. With this victory under his belt, Scotty felt confident enough to continue his search for more of those monsters lurking in the shadows. It wasn't long before he found himself facing off against another huge beast that seemed almost invincible, much larger than all of them before it, with glowing red eyes that filled him with dread. It took everything he had left in him, but eventually Scotty managed to defeat this final monster and send it back from whence it came. With his final victory, he knew that he had saved himself and Tina from a fate worse than death. As Scotty returned home to find Tina waiting for him with open arms, they embraced tightly, knowing that they were safe now thanks to his bravery and determination. Together by the fire, they sat down together, as Scotty vowed never again to let anything stand in the way of protecting what mattered most to him, his family and friends. With renewed faith in himself and his abilities as a powerful warlock, Scotty knew that he had finally come face to face with an ancient evil, but thanks to guidance from his ancestors, was able to stand up against it and protect those he loved most in this world. Scotty vowed never again to let anything threaten his loved ones, no matter how powerful or dangerous it might be.